Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video, as the title suggests, you don't always get what you want. And in this case, unfortunately, I have learned a tough lesson. So if you have been following along on my journey for the custom image taken character, this will most likely be its conclusion. We did get it to a pretty reasonable state, however, I kind of realized that overall it wasn't measuring up to where I wanted it to be. Even with everything that I was investing in it, it just didn't hit what I wanted it to hit. And we're going to go over some of those reasons why, and also reflect on how we can learn from this in the future, because we all want to improve at making builds. And in the background here, you can see a compromise that I came to, which I was very unhappy about, and that is the reversion to just the traditional Blade 4 Blade Blast builds. With custom image taken loop, which eventually, you could take through and easily push through to, doing every piece of content in the game. We've seen that done before, and I imagine I would just be seeing, you'd be seeing that done again. It would be nothing new. So my aspirations for this character were to create the fastest character possible, and unfortunately we did miss that mark, and I'm going to go over the reasons why. So in my previous video, you would have seen me kind of showing off my kind of new approach to try and kind of get the character to be that fast as possible. That is definitely the direction I think you would have to go in, that Blade Vortex direction, because you're just not going to get there if you're playing Blade Blast. As you can see here, sometimes it takes a while for the blades to go off, for the blast to go off, sorry, and that does slow down your clear speed considerably. But I'm going to go through systematically all of the issues that I had with the build, and in the end what caused it to fall short of being able to live up to that fastest build ever, and we're kind of going to go over that now. Alright, so the first point is Explode. So Explode's a pretty interesting one. Not many people have actually talked about the nerfed Explode or had exposure to using it yet. Now that I have used it in maps and on a character, I do have a few opinions about it, and I thought I would be willing to share them. So the first one is that my character in the background here currently has 60% chance to explode. And that's a fairly high amount, but it's actually not that high. You would expect that to feel pretty damn good, but in reality it does not. So I decided to scale my AoE simply only off of explosions. So basically I was running a Blade Vortex build, and my only AoE was going to be the explosion chaining. And I felt that the theory was that I would blow up enough monsters that it would chain the pack and blow up all of them. However, in reality, this doesn't work out that great, because 60% chance, that means half of the pack isn't getting exploded for the most part. And that is a big issue, and it's going to lead to a lot of monsters not popping. Even just in the background here, you can see that in previous times you would have the whole entire packs go doo, 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 and they would just constantly be dead on cooldown essentially. That's not how it is anymore. Like, you can see in the background that I do actually have enough scaling to basically chain the packs. Maybe I need even more scaling. I don't have enough scaling to chain rares, but I do have enough scaling to chain packs, and it's just not actually blowing the whole pack up like you would want, because you don't have that 100% chance to blow them up. And that is a massive issue when you're relying so heavily on the explosion chains to kind of get the goodness for your build. And if anyone's played Blade Vortex without Explode, they know exactly what I mean. So that was strike number one. I will kind of talk a little bit more about Explode though, and how it probably can, and how I've seen it be used in a post-nerf state. So if you have a sort of crutch for Explode, so something that adds onto it a second dimension, it actually can be incredibly powerful. So whether that's Herald of Ice, or whether that's Herald of Ash, or even something else entirely, that can actually lead to your Explode continuing to chain and continuing to feel very, very good overall. And what I mean by that is, so let's say you blow up 2 mobs in the pack, and then those mobs blow up, and then they freeze and shatter another 2 mobs, or they themselves blow up with the Herald of Ice. That can then trigger more explodes and kind of chain it around. But I think the days of having Explode as your primary source of primary source of clear are, for the most part, at least in my experience, over. You need to couple it with, as I mentioned, Herald of Ice. Herald of Ash is also another very good candidate, because it scales overkill damage and also scales the herald, the exploit itself. In addition to that, you can also go into Ignite Prolif. Ignite Prolif has been proven to work very, very well. I've seen it work many times. Essentially, that would be the idea that you scale the 10% explosion from the exploded chest, and have that then proliferate and ignite based on a percentage of that HP of that mob around, and then that would then be your clear, and that would work very, very well indeed. However, of course, I didn't go down that path, and I leaned on Explode exclusively, and that did eventually destroy my character in terms of the clear speed department. So yeah, that was a bit unfortunate. All right, moving on. What's the second part here? Well, I'm actually going to have to jump in game to show you this one. So the second part is that you'll notice in my last video that I was planning on going with 2 custom damage takens and then a 6 link, which essentially featured a hard cast blade blast. And I can kind of show you what that looks like here. So if I jump on the loop, you can see here that everything's good. And when I start moving around and I cast my Blade Blast, look at my mana right now. It's very, very low. Now, this does do incredible damage. However, the downside of this is, in fact, that the issue with this is that, you know, as I'm doing that, I have no mana. And my overall defense for this character is Mind Over Matter. I have 54% or something like that Mind Over Matter. And when I do that on a boss fight, I'm basically dead to anything. Because I have like two or three, I think I top out at 3k life in my PoB. And that is unacceptable. The most powerful Mind Over Matter builds both use very, very little mana overall. So the Mana Miner and some other builds. And they also leverage Arcane Cloak. So for me, Arcane Cloak, I can't actually use Arcane Cloak because it gets instantly consumed by my cast damage taken loop. And then in addition to that, I'm also leveraging my entire mana pool, so I end up with no EHP and no defensive layers at all. So that's two things that essentially forced me back into the Blade for Blade Blast kind of tried and tested kind of method. And, you know, I'm going to link a video down below that shows just how powerful that is and shows that that is a very good build. That actually does rely on Legacy Explode, but I'm sure you could get similar effects. And I know that's a good build. I know it can do all content in the game. I know he has Harvest Crafts, but you should be able to emulate what he's doing fairly simply. And I could do that. Now, obviously those are two massive problems, so I swap over to the Blade for Blade Blast, and you do see that I can get a pretty functional character, and I'm sure I could push it all the way to the limits. If I show you guys here, right now this is what I would be running on, would be a kind of setup like this. I would swap over the Blade Vortex, most likely to a 3-link or a 2-link. I would shift in a bunch of the utility into a 6-link. I'd actually have to break my 6-link, which I can't bring myself to do. I'd have to break that 6-link to make it a 4 and a 2-link, essentially allowing me to have multiple setups, so I could do EK, Blade for Blade Blast, Blade Vortex, and have just infinite blades everywhere. And then that would be incredible single target damage. I'd have to downgrade my level 20 custom damage taken to make it so I can actually pop that amount of blades. But when I can, of course, everyone would realize that the damage would be extremely fantastic. And you'll see that in the video down below, which I'm going to link from, I think his name is NNNN or something like that. Overall, it would be very, very good. If you're not pursuing the clear speed kind of angle, you can swap out torrents like Reclamation and grab a Stygian Vice with cooldown reduction and also mana recovery, which essentially feeds your Indigon even more damage, which is probably the best approach. You can also get the CDR on that. But again, you would sacrifice movement speed, and overall, it's just a very different character, and that's where my character would actually end up if I was to continue to pursue this character. It would end up as a bossing character, and in my opinion, if I wanted to go for a bossing character, I would probably go for a Mana Miner, as in my opinion, that is still the best bossing character in the game. Overall, though, it is a very competitive bossing character, and it's a very good one. If you're interested in a quirky boss killer, this could be the one for you. But unfortunately for me, I don't think it is, because I would rather just go for a Mana Miner Ascendant in general. And overall, when I'm trying to look for a clear build, I was looking for the fastest build I could possibly get my hands on, and unfortunately this one didn't quite live up to my expectations, which is sad, but it is what it is. So overall, I guess kind of give you guys a bit of an overview of kind of where the character ended up. So obviously it's not incredibly high level, but the writing is definitely on the wall. I could totally push the character to level 95 or 96 and do a big bossing kind of push with it. Which maybe I'll do at some point. But right now, you can see that my kind of approach was to invest heavily in AoE, and I was going to pick up my third cluster and continue to do so, hoping that I could salvage the explode chaining. However, I think that the real issue was actually the consistency of the explode chaining, and that wasn't going to get me over the line. For the most part, all the defensive issues that the build has could be solved by swapping over to a more bossing setup. You know, as I mentioned, Stygian Vice, ditching the boots and going with some much more kind of tanky boots. You could easily pick up all the resistances you need, and then more some as well, like Chaos Res Cap and all sorts of stuff like that. You could swap out the conversion gloves over here and go for Curse on hit, Frostbite gloves as well, and then also pick up 35% Ashling Slam. There's so many different things you could do with the build to make it a bossing beast. But in terms of a clear speed beast, I just couldn't get it to where I wanted to get it to. Hope you guys aren't too sad and disappointed in me. But I am a speed demon, man. I need the speed. And this isn't quite cutting it for the speed department for me. So I highly recommend checking out the video down below. I'm sure a lot of you already seen it. But that is where you would take the character. You would have to kind of emulate that kind of character. Overall, I'd probably look into not going for Explode and just lean on your bossing potential, because you do sacrifice a lot by picking up the bow. I'd probably go with a +5 physical damage, physical spell staff. And roll with that, and you would just reach monstrous amounts of damage on your Blade 4 Blade Blast, and you would be pretty damn good to go for the most part for most encounters in the game. And then all you have to do is worry about scaling defense, and that's not a hard task once you have all of your damage covered and all of your resistance covered by getting more rares overall. And it would be a pretty damn good time. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Upon reflection, measuring it all up, where did I go wrong? So I think overall, I tried to cram way too many mechanics into one build. Mainly, if you want to kind of assess it, so at the minimum, I tried to cram the following into the build. I tried to cram Cast Image Taken, Blade Vortex. I tried to cram Mana, the Mana setup, which is the Mana Ascendant. Tried to cram all of the movement speed stuff in, so you can see the elusive and all sorts of stuff like that. Torrent's Reclamation, all sorts of stuff like that. I tried to cram Explode in, and then I also tried to cram in Phase Run, as well as all of the Enhance and all sorts of stuff like that. And then I also tried to cram in AoE Scaling, which is going to also be very, very difficult. And then I suppose that you could also add that I tried to cram in Blast Freeze and all of the flask stuff like that. And Indigon, and oh man, I tried to put so much in. And when you compare that to a build like Tornado Shot or Ice Shot, where it's very simple: movement speed, projectile damage, and projectile scaling, and chains, and maybe some extra projectiles. That's it. And those are all things that are all present on the same items. You know, you can get the chains on quivers, and you get the projectiles on the bows. You know, a lot of that stuff comes in one ascendancy. And that's kind of where it is, right? And all of your damage just scales pretty easily with all of those things. And it's not too much of an issue. If you take something like the Mana Miner, what do you scale on Mana Miner? You scale mana, and that's it, man. You just scale the mana. That's pretty much it. You know, obviously you have a few other things going on, but it's pretty much just mana. Mana and crit. Also, I was trying to scale crit on this build as well. You know, you can look at pretty much any of the really, really strong competitive builds. Let's take Blade Vortex from last league. What did it scale? It scaled crit multi, in some cases aura, and AoE. That's it, man. That's it. And it did that through power charges. So that's pretty simple, and that's tried and true, and it works. Overall, I think that if you're trying to build a build and you're trying to build it from the ground up, try and stick to 1, 2, or 3 things and do them really, really well and scale your damage off of that. If you try and get pulled in too many different directions, it's going to be really, really difficult. And it's very, very tempting with all of these awesome things coming out. You know, self-chill over here. Yep, I'll put that one in. Oh, look, Vile Steals. Yep, I'll put that in too. You know, Custom Damage Taken. Yeah, put that in too, dude. And you can see me just like a kid at a candy store trying to literally jam every single overpowered mechanic I could into this build. And, you know, it just was it didn't work, man. I had too many things going on. And there's just absolutely not enough skill points on the tree to cover all that. And even if I could get it all into one thing, it wouldn't be as strong as something that's specialized in one of them. So overall, I'm really glad I did this build. I'm really glad I learned these lessons, and I hope you guys have learned something as well upon reflection. We learned about the Explodey chest, and I definitely am going to come out of the woodwork with a brand new build. I'm not sure whether it's going to be yet. I need to kind of process these lessons and make sure I don't make the same ones again before I dive out there and try it all again. But with all that said, guys, hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hopefully you're not too disappointed in me in terms of the not being able to make the build happen. We did get somewhere, it just wasn't where we wanted to go. And you can push the build to do bosses if you want to do that and go down that path. It's very, very powerful at that. We've seen it happen. But with all that said, guys, hope you guys have enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.